Zane here. Welcome to the second ever episode of the Imperium Report, this one for February 2016. Thank you for joining me, guys. This month we have interviews with representatives from Imperium's military and exploration divisions. But before we get to that, got a little bit of community news for you guys. The Star Citizen-based community is like 90% about Star Citizen, but our members are playing a bunch of other stuff in the meantime. Two games that Imperium is going to have a presence in that are coming up that you might be interested in. One is Black Desert Online. It's launching on March 3rd or on the 28th of February if you have early access. It's a fantasy-style open-world Korean MMO made by Pearl Abyss, so be sure to check that out. Imperium is also planning to have a large presence in Tom Clancy's The Division, launching on March 8th. It's a shooter MMO set in a post-apocalyptic New York City by Ubisoft. Imperium, as I mentioned, is going to be having a large presence in that game, so check for details on both of those games over on our team building forums. Imperium flight events are still ongoing, Thursdays at 20 UTC and Sundays at 1500 UTC. You can check the forums for that, as well as our SCB Community Meetings. Those happen every Saturday at 2100 UTC. The next one is on the 5th of March. Did you guys see the first episode of the Imperium Insider? The next one will be coming up later this month. Check out the Imperium YouTube channel if you haven't seen that yet. All right, without further ado, let's get to our first interview with the Exploration Division. Imperium's Exploration Division runs our non-military operations and is dedicated primarily to discovering the unknown and operating outside of Imperium operations space. Its missions are centered primarily around non-military activities, examples ranging from navigating jump points to locating valuable information, resource locations, or bounties. I'm here with CC Corp and Volinquo, our explorations officers. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
So, exploration maybe isn't as clear-cut as some of our other divisions, like military. That's pretty easy to know what they do. Can you explain for us exactly what the goals of the Exploration Division are?
Of course. Some of our main focuses obviously are mapping the verse. This will be vital for the Imperium's strength, as it will take us to discover valuables, resources, jump points, derelicts, and other points of interest that can be offered to other organizations and within our own organization. After all, knowledge is power after all.
All right, so how do we plan on accomplishing that? How do we plan to explore the verse?
Well, we'll start inside the game, of course, sending explorers in dedicated ships around the verse, going to unknown systems, uncharted systems, and of course known systems as well to find any potential resources that would be valuable for Imperium. But we will also focus on more than just the game itself by doing some metagaming, looking at the websites, like the news that are on CIG, any wikis to Galactipedia, or even the star map that we have available today, and try to gather as much information as possible and process it in a way that can be used by Imperium.
Right, so how have you been able to put this into practice in the game that we have today?
Well, luckily with 2.0, we've had great chances to experience just a little bit of what it'll be like to explore in Star Citizen as we slowly get more of the verse released. The moons and other things have had derelicts and stuff like that for us to try and find. They're not really popping up. You just got to fly around and find them. Our specialists, they've been working on designing a search and rescue training operation to have mainly around the ICC search and rescue missions, which are basically hand-in-hand the same idea. We're also working along with tech to create a database that will be accessible through the portal, where you can input data as you gather it throughout the persistent universe and the small PU when we get it out.
You'll actually see an example of that this month in February, as we will publish our first post with some of the results from our exploring at Crusader system, and how we're using different resources to map it and present this information to the rest of the organization to be able to share it more easily to our members.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned a database before. What exactly is that going to be used for? Why do we need a database?
Well, there will be so much out there for us to report back and share with the rest of the organization that we needed a simple and effective way to process all that data. By being able to gather everything in a common database, we can easily share any new information quickly and generate missions based on that information. We'll also be building a wiki up with relative information as well as guides and how-tos in order to assist aspiring explorers on their endeavors.
All right. Is there anything big coming up for exploration that you guys can tell us about?
Well, we're still waiting for more of the game to come out and more of the exploration mechanics and gameplay assets to be released so we can do more practical exploring. But until then, as I mentioned earlier, we do have the first examples of the Crusader system that we will publish on the forum in the coming weeks. And from there on, we will see how the members react and take their feedback and comments and build up on that to make the map and information better if possible, and also find a way to implement it within the portal system so it can generate missions and practical data in the future.
All right, here's maybe a touchy question. I don't know. We're talking about this. Obviously, the Imperium report is aimed at Imperium, but it is public. Is there a risk in sharing all of this data with people outside Imperium?
Well, you could look at it as exposure, but actually it is beneficial, much like with diplomacy, where treaties with certain organizations aren't made publicly available. Certain data won't be shared below a certain level. We want to empower our members and facilitate success in their personal endeavors, and we want them to know where they can seek refuge if on the run, but there's no reason for a member to know where a high value asset is or to know the location and details of military missions. On top of that, should something happen to one of our members, everyone will see it. They'll be able to respond far quicker than if we had kept all that information as locked down as possible.
All right, that makes sense to me. Is there anything else you want to say to Imperium before we sign off?
If people are interested in more information about the Exploration Division, they're more than welcome to visit the sub-forum Exploration, where we try to post our latest projects and where people share ideas and comments and questions or even concerns. Because this is, of course, a group endeavor, and the more people work together, the better this division will also become. With that, I want to thank all the members that have already contributed a lot to the division, either helping us mapping the Crusader system or just sharing ideas, theory crafting, having long conversations through the nights even, and all the community gatherings we managed to have up till now without a proper game to play. And yeah, any member that has the slightest interest in exploration is a valuable asset, not only to us, to exploration officers, but to Imperium as a whole.
And anyone wishing to dedicate more time to exploration or is even intrigued with exploration, either send an application to us through the portal to become a specialist, or just on the forums, just create a post, try to get your own event happening and explore 2.1. And with 2.2 coming out, if anything of what I've heard, it might actually have a lot more stuff for us to explore in.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you.
All right, thank you once again to the guys from Exploration. Let's go ahead and jump right into our second interview for this month with military. Imperium's military is responsible for the offensive and defensive operations undertaken by the fleet, both in space and on the ground. These operations include, but are not limited to, the elimination of hostile forces, the protection of Imperium and allied assets, the preservation of Imperium trade routes, and the security of any operation that takes place along these routes. This month, we sit down with Nazareth and Dupsums to discuss what the military team is currently working on and how they handle their business. What's going on, you guys?
Not much. How are you doing?
Not much at all, Zane. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Tell you what, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves?
All right. My name's Nazareth. I'm one of the military officers here at Imperium. I've been a member just over 3 years now in January. That's about it.
And yeah, my name's Doopsums. Been in Imperium for almost 2 years now. Started as a military specialist and dabbled in human resources, and finally, I think, settled into military.
All right. Well, can you guys give us an overall description of the military division? What your view of the division's purpose and goals are?
Well, I mean, Zane touched on it pretty well, that intro that I'm sure you guys heard, but overall, I would say the military represents the might of Imperium on both an offensive and defensive perspective. What the division's responsible for is protecting our members, protecting our members' assets, protecting our organizational assets, also helping out other organizations and alliances, or any relations that we have with other organizations, as well as protecting those. And also it goes into taking a look at our assets in terms of military and how can we use them most effectively. So yeah, I would say that sums it up about all I can think of right now.
All right, tell us a little bit about what you guys do, day to day as a military officer.
Well, one of our responsibilities as military officers is to oversee various projects that we've got going on at any given time. We work in conjunction with not only our specialists, but also our fellow officers from other divisions. And we're constantly refining our process to get the best possible product we can to our members.
Yeah, and just to add to Nazareth, it's important for whenever we're working on projects too, is we always have to think about it in a macro scale in terms of not only does it how it affects military, but sometimes these systems can, or things that we're working on can turn into things that expand to multiple divisions. So we always have to take a step back and make sure what we're working on always also can possibly flow into other divisions as well.
Yeah, we're a team, so we try to collaborate as much as we possibly can.
You mentioned specialists. What do the military specialists get up to these days?
Quite a bit, actually. I think it's more important to actually focus on what exactly the specialists are, and that's they're really supplemental to a lot of the projects that we work on. I think a term that me and Nazareth use is content specialists. A military specialist could be someone who's very keen in FPS. It can be someone who's very keen on flight. It could be someone who's keen on just comms. For either one of those aspects. Also, communication is really important, as well as sometimes there'll be some busy work. So, a lot of times the specialist role will evolve, shift, and change depending on what exactly we're working on.
Absolutely. Like Doopsum said, communication is key because they are oftentimes find themselves working with the different divisional officers and specialists, because we have so many projects that are in the works that aren't just military. So it's a collaborative effort, of course.
How about you guys give us a little glimpse at how we got to where we are? Tell us about the history of the military division.
Certainly. Like I said before, I've been here a little over 3 years now. So when I first joined, military was then known as the Combat Ops Division, and we actually asked our members to sign up for divisions back then. But as it stands now, we've modified our structure quite a bit to give our members a lot more freedom and a lot more flexibility to do what they want to and express themselves in game by not pigeonholing them to one certain position. So as we are now, we're the military division. We have put a lot of work and a lot of effort into giving our players the best possible system we can.
Yeah, just to piggyback on Nazareth, it's so important, right? You see a lot of organizations that, they have their T&I and their military and their trade and industry. And, in Imperium's case, it falls into the roles such as specialists and officers who specialize in it, because our organization is built and organized in having departments or being compartmentalized. And what it does is it allows us to work on projects more efficiently, as well as project manage those. And At the member level, because of the mission system that's being worked on, the new unit system that rolled out recently also reflects this. It's why the ball is really in the members' court to choose, and decide how they want to play the game, and also gives them enough flexibility to do a TNI mission or do whatever gameplay they want, and then switch it up the next day and do something different. And that's kind of the beauty of it. Just me and Nazareth now are specifically focused on the military side of operations for Imperium.
Do you guys have any current projects that you can tell us about?
I don't know where to start. I mean, it's just exciting with 2.0 coming out and the baby PU. And I think military is in a really good spot right now for being able to finally start to roll out stuff. I would say we have a ton of projects right now because all the gameplay that's currently in Star Citizen is pretty much tailor-made for combat, if you think of things like Arena Commander and even the PU itself. And so one of the current projects that we're working on is actually we're building an idea of an opposing force for our division, which is basically taking a look at assessing some of our top pilots and getting them together and seeing what we can do to practice some of our mission scenarios and training scenarios, and collaborating with Academy and our specialists and ourselves and rolling out some new content and preparing us for situations in the future. What we're also working on too is we just went through a round of interviews for specialists. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who applied, and but I think we had we interviewed over 15 people for specialists currently, and there was a ton of great people and quality personalities that are there that I think are really going to help us with some of these projects that we're working on.
It sounds like you're building a strong foundation for the division. What are you going to be working on in the future, both through the rest of Star Citizen's development and once we're actually active in the eventual PU?
Yeah, certainly. As Dupe's touched on a little bit, one of the projects that we've got in the works is an opposing force team or not for team. And one of the purposes of that team is to actually help us prepare for the persistent universe. In doing so, we want to try to emulate as best as we can our mission system, like by creating certain scenarios in the PU that will as closely emulate the persistent universe as we possibly can. And, it might be something along the lines of our Op4 team playing the role of an enemy force attacking a convoy made up of our trainees, or vice versa, having our trainees attack a convoy that is escorted by our Op4, for example. And that's just one of the many things that, we'll use as a tool to learn from and increase our knowledge base for when the PU actually comes out and make our players that much better.
And it really does tie back into the specialists and part of their roles too, with the opposing force and the specialists, testing those kinds of scenarios out with the opposing force, and would allow us also to help build content which could supplement the Academy for rolling out some training courses. That's another thing that we're planning to work on in the future is rolling out some comms, basic, advanced, working hand in hand with Academy and our specialists to get some content out finally to all the member base, to the entire member base of Imperium. So they can start practicing these things. Another important factor and project that we want to work on is we just want to try to up participation in playing the game, right? And I think one of the ways, and it ties right into the opposing force and testing some scenarios, is maybe we currently have the flight events going on right now during the week on Sundays and Thursdays, and we'd even maybe like to do maybe a military theme night where maybe we test out a specific mission, like to elaborate again on Nazareth, like say escorting, right? And people sign up to be a captain of a constellation with 2 gunners, and you maybe have 2 Hornets escorting it, for instance, and you run a mission scenario, and then you can use that opposing force during it, and it's a way to get the Imperium member base involved. At the same time, learn about some of the trainings that we're working on to help Academy, and at the same time too, also help to practice our communication as well as help our specialists in dealing out that content to Academy.
And it also ties back into the mission system quite a bit, because it's how we're going to learn to do certifications, and that ties in very closely with how the mission system will work out with the portal and our online job board, so to speak. So that it'll definitely have future ramifications going forward.
That also just leads into one of the projects that me and Nazareth are also tied to, which is a very long term, is the mission system will continue to be built and reiterated upon. And with that, we want to make sure that me and Nazareth do our part in making sure the military side of that is covered with all the different gameplay aspects. So, going back to one of the earlier questions about one of the responsibilities is, we have to stay up to date on what the game is doing and releasing and what SIG is saying, because all the information that comes out directly affects our planning for how we can build the division properly.
That sounds pretty awesome. I'm going to throw something else at you guys real quick here. Nazareth mentioned certifications, and it's a little broader in scope than just military division, but maybe you guys can clarify, just in case some of our members aren't aware exactly what that word means in this context.
Certainly. Certifications are a way for us to tell give us a baseline of what knowledge an individual may have. And one way that we can determine that is through working alongside the Academy to create a course curriculum and training regimen for our members. What that means, there'll be various levels of training. There may be introductory levels and then higher tier levels for more expert content, of course. But when you obtain a certification through Academy, it just gives us a baseline measurement of what you do and do not know. And then, it's never meant to be something that we're not going to make you get a degree or go to school, basically, to be able to play with us. But it does give us a little bit of a clue of your, for lack of a better word, competency level, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd to elaborate a little bit. Certifications they do act kind of as a filter too, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the way Imperium is structured, and that it's really up to the member the individual member to decide what their commitment is. If they want to do a super high risk reward mission, Imperium sanctioned mission, they can do that, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to have 17 million certifications and spend 6 hours outside of the game just doing work stuff. It could be just, from their success and, where they're ranked on the leaderboards, or if they're running a unit, or they've just have played through their time and had successful missions run, and it takes into consideration the feedback. So I think that's one of the things that members get confused on a lot, is a lot of times they think that, because I don't have a certification, I can't do this. And there's a lot of other factors that go into it, but certification is just like kind of one of the baseline. So to give you an example, say for instance, Joe Schmo joins the organization and he has an Aurora, and Imperium as an organization captures a Bengal, and then a mission gets created and says that, we need somebody to captain the Bengal, and Joe Schmo just started playing and he signs up. Well, there's a good chance that he probably doesn't necessarily know how to captain a Bengal, and that's kind of the idea where the certification system came from.
Awesome. Well, I think we're just about ready to wrap up, but is there anything else you guys want to say to the Imperium members before we do?
Yeah, definitely. First off, I just want to say thank you to everybody that is working on these projects, and to all of our pilots out there who are currently flying in Arena Commander and representing our organization. Keep it up. Your participation is greatly accepted and looked up to, and we really appreciate it. And I guess it's a good way to, if you want to do more, if you're up for doing more, help in the military, feel free to shoot myself or Nazareth, the PM, or apply for a specialist position, or just open up some conversation with us and see if we can get you more involved if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I want to invite everybody to try to contribute, and if I had to give some advice about how to get involved and how to get to know us as people a little bit better, my advice would be to download TeamSpeak, get online, chat with us, play games with us, hang out with us. We're people too. And we enjoy getting to know people. We try to be as approachable as we can, so by all means, come in and get to know us a little bit better.
All right. Nazareth, Doopsums, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Zane.
And that's just about going to do it for this month's Imperium Report. Thank you once again for being here, guys, and let us know if you have any feedback, any constructive criticism about these reports. We want to hear it, because we're doing these for you. And if there's something you don't like or think could be done better, let us know. All right, until next month, Zane out.